Afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Google Apps for Education Professional Development webinar series. Today we'll be taking on part 3 of JavaScript for Teachers. If you missed part 1 and part 2, those are archived online, so you can go back and check those out after this webinar. But we're really excited to have Wente-Chaney and Wendy Gorton, who are 2 of our Google Apps for Education certified trainers, on the line to talk to us about JavaScript. So with that, I will pass the presenter ball over to them, and we'll get started. Thanks, guys. Pass the ball to the wrong person, but there we go. That should set it.
Hello, this is Rachel. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Great. Wendy, are you there?
This is Wendy. Am I coming through clear?
Yep, you sound great.
Fantastic.
And I shared my Chrome window, and let's make sure you can see the title screen for JavaScript Part 3. Great. Okay, it sounds like we're all set. So, like normal, why don't we do our little introductions to get started, and we'll talk about JavaScript and Google Apps.
And great. Well, my name is Wendy Gorton, and like Becky said earlier, I'm a Google Apps EDU certified trainer and Google certified teacher, and have been an elementary teacher, tech coordinator, and everything in between. And I'm happy that this is our third one in the series with Rachel. We had a great time in the past to helping teachers understand JavaScript. I come from a background of not being a coder and developer, but I love working with teachers, and knowing JavaScript and Google Apps Script has really helped me work with teachers to take cool Google Apps tools and make them do exactly what we want. So it's really powerful language, and our third one today, we're hoping you can walk out the door and start to actually write your own code and move on from here with some good resources.
I'm Rachel Wente-Chaney. I'm calling in from Central Oregon. I have a little bit of background with programming, but I'm definitely not a JavaScript expert. It's been nice to walk along this path with Wendy the past few months and really kind of understand the language a little more fully. I think it's becoming more and more important as so many of our web apps and our websites are moving towards HTML5, CSS, and JavaScript as a really powerful trio of tools for the modern web. So we're excited to continue on this journey today. So our tips for today, during each of our sessions, we have tried to keep this as simple and as focused as possible for what is essentially a 45-minute training session. So today we're going to, again, continue scaffolding our knowledge by stepping back and reviewing our basic JavaScript pieces from our first 2 sessions. We're going to talk about and introduce the Google Script Editor. We're going to talk about some of the basics and some of the kind of built-in objects and script tools, the API basics. We're going to talk about designing our own scripts, writing our script, which is we're going to kind of cheat a bit and do a copy and paste and then some modify, but we will be working right in the script editor, not from a pre-built spreadsheet script. And then a bunch of extras to share today. And Wendy's done a really nice job setting up even a companion site, which we'll get to on the next slide. So for those of you in our first 2 sessions, you'll know that at the bottom of this slide, we've always had a warning or a caveat that you will not leave this session able to write your own script, but we're getting there. So this time we get to say you will leave this session able to write your own script, or at least understand what someone else has written. It's very simple, but it is complete, and we should be able to run it from beginning to end. with that, this is the link to the resource site that Wendy has created. I'm going to leave it up here for just a minute in case you want to scribble down that shortened URL.
Put it in the chat screen as well. And I've archived our 1 and 2 webinar series there, as well as the links we'll be looking at today, and a presentation that we've used at the Google Teacher Academy for a really cool site loader that you can use with Google Sites. So the things there today. So if we're going fast or if you want to come back, I definitely encourage you to visit our site.
Yep, and I'm going to, did you say you already put it in the chat box, Wendy? Let me see if I can.
You did. Up okay. There, just in case. That's the shortener one, so that'll be nice too. I put the long one in.
Okay. George says no sound in the chat window. Can someone ping in and let us know if you're hearing us?
We're okay. I'll follow up.
Okay. Thanks, Becky. Let's get going. We're stepping way back to the beginning to talk about JavaScript and its importance for Google Apps. JavaScript is the language of Google Apps scripts. It's a super flexible language, which, as we talked about in our first session, can be good and that can be bad, kind of like in the English language when we pronounce dough and tough differently, even though they follow the same spelling convention. There are some of those similar tricky areas in JavaScript. But for the most part, its flexibility is it's a good thing. It's a boon for programmers and people wanting to be able to do neat things on the web. The especially neat thing, especially for those of us who are not computer programmers in our day jobs, it's a readable language. It's readable by humans. We used an example in our first segment where we walked through a script and we walked it through different phases, starting out with just a binary, string of bits, and all the way through modern JavaScript, and the readability improved with each step we took. So a big part of JavaScript, and the part that maybe I guess is one of the most important parts for Google Apps scripts, are the functions. And functions are just small pieces of program that do something useful. We use them and can call them or use them multiple times. Like in our example from the first 2 sessions, we had send emails. And that's important for those. I don't program daily in my work life right now, but I grew up with a father programmed for a living, and many of his older pieces of software had probably tens of thousands of lines of repetition because we didn't have some of the functions and variables that we could assign and call later in some of the earlier languages. So it's now that we can define a function and then call it wherever we need it. JavaScript includes values, which are numbers, strings, booleans, objects. It includes variables, and the reason we've used an octopus throughout our whole JavaScript for Teachers series is because of the description in Eloquent JavaScript, which is a great book. If you have not read it, I highly recommend it. You can buy the paperback version, or it's also available on the web for free. Variables in JavaScript are a little different than what we think of them as in math or in sciences, where they're not necessarily fixed values. The variables in JavaScript, they catch and hold values, and then they release them when they're not needed any longer. So the difference was that they're tentacles of an octopus, not boxes that we put a value in. And then objects are a special kind of data, a special kind of value. You see, they really are a value, but a collection of properties. And those properties can describe something in its state and also describe what it does. Back and listened to our second WebEx, our part 2. I wasn't very happy with the description I had done on objects, so I thought we would talk just another minute about objects, since they are pretty important because of the way things are clumped together in scripts. So elementary school, this is our J Octopus Elementary School, has different people and will pretend they're objects. required to make the school run. So we have maintenance people, we have administrators, we have secretaries, we have teachers. There are more. This is just a simple example. Each of those objects really has a specific task, depending on the size of the school district and the size of the school, that he or she is responsible for. So the maintenance person is really responsible for facilities and has certain tasks that he or she does. Keeping the building safe and secure, keeping it clean, emptying trash cans, repairing windows, the list goes on. The same for administrators, secretaries, and teachers. Each of those objects has a fairly specific set of methods or actions that are responsible for, and it's when you put them all together that you actually run a whole school. So I think that's maybe one of the better hands-on, or hopefully a better hands-on way to think about objects. They're really just dedicated clumps, dedicated actions and functions that perform a specific task. Link those together, kind of like gears or kind of like cogs in the wheel to make a full program. Wendy, is that better?
Yeah, thank you so much. This is a slide from Saurabh Gupta. He's part of the Google Apps Script development team, and he's been kind of my virtual mentor. I've included his webinar on our resource page because it's really helped me and the Google Apps Script website to help understand kind of visually what it does. And Rachel just did a great job of kind of the school metaphor in terms of objects do. But today, kind of if you follow along our little map, we're going to be opening up a script editor, and you can access those in either spreadsheet or site. So that's kind of where your scripts live. It's why the Google Apps Script is so cool that it lives on the web. So there's not a separate application that comes up. It's directly in your spreadsheet or your site. Once Rachel's going to open up the script editor in our demo, we actually write the script in the browser. And it's nice because it prompts you. And so once we get to the language better, the more scripts you get to use, you understand the same kind of things that keep popping up, the same objects, the same classes, the same functions. And it's amazing, just like Spanish 101 in 8th grade, it starts to kind of click after the 3rd or 4th for me. And then we save it, and then it actually gets executed. And you can see the different ways it can be executed. So it'd be something that comes up in a site, a stand web app or user interface, in a spreadsheet, and triggers. What we'll go to later is what actually makes those come up. So this map from Saurabh Gupta from his presentation really helped me, and I hope it can kind of extend the visual metaphor and trying to understand what we're doing from writing script and how it actually comes out with your users. Just to kind of break it down into what services you can get. I was talking earlier about working with teachers and working with Google Apps. And if you look, you can use docs, lists, sites, and spreadsheets are 3 of the content services that we can call and work with. So kind of just starting to understand what this language looks like. Rachel's already told you what a function is, and it's something that you want to get done, and you name it. In this case, get docs. Like it when you are writing code that they call camel case, that first word always not capitalized, and the second one is. So you guys kind of start to read those a lot easier in terms of what you're trying to tell the app to do. And you can see the variables, the different parts that the function can call. So we can call the spreadsheet app, the site app, doc list by docs list by folder. So you can start to see kind of the patterns in how the variable, what docs you want to use, and then you can see in the parentheses, which we'll look at later in detail with the code, what exactly you want to happen, or what spreadsheet or cell or what doc name it might be.
All right, we are going to go ahead and kind of walk through some slides on using the script editor. And we'll jump into the live environment and we'll actually walk through the script itself. So the first thing we need to do, Wendy mentioned that You can run the script editor from sites. Today we're going to use spreadsheets. We create a spreadsheet, and underneath the Tools menu, we have the script editor. It's that easy. Have the script editor open. I like to do this thing. I kind of arrange my windows side by side so I can be working in the script editor window, which is on the right, and seeing the output or the process happening when I run it on the left. And then also go ahead and name the project. Our script today, we're going to a simple introductory script. It's actually in one of the links from the resources. The starter script on the Google Apps script site. And if we walk through the different pieces, so Wendy said this is our example, our little script that we're going to run. We get a name. Again, we get to name those functions. So we've given it a name example. To work on the ACT spreadsheet. So and when we have that spreadsheet window open next to it, that's the spreadsheet that it's going to be acting on. The actual sheet, in our case, so we'll just have the one sheet. First thing we are going to notice is have an input box pop up, and it'll ask us to enter a number. We do that, and the value is returned through the input box. We're going to take this range, in this case cell A1, and we're going to set the value of that cell to this thing here. Notice it has quotation marks around it. So it's actually, we're going to, have cell read number entered. Next, we're going to say we need to identify B1, and in B1, and I keep clicking slideshow, sorry about that, we're actually going to insert this variable. And notice it's different in that it doesn't have the quotation marks around it because it's not a string. It's not a string of text. It's actually the variable that we identified up here. And it's that number in the input box. We've done it, and we're going to plop it right into cell B1. And to identify another variable, value to show. Value to show is a calculation. It's 1 plus 1. And the last piece is that we'll have a message box appear. An input box is a box where you, just as it sounds, you can input something. A message box is a box that just displays text. And you'll see you have the text in quotation marks. So we'll have a string, value you entered plus 1 is, and then you should notice just like above, this value show is placed there because we've identified the variable. So it's really simple, gives you an idea, kind of step by step, what this little script is going to do.
Because you can see, she coded it really nicely, and you can see the kind of things you can change. And so what I'd like to do is, as I've kind of taken existing scripts, I'll then maybe put in a different value or put in a different cell range to get it. And it's good to just slowly start to edit the syntax and see that you are making changes based on these words that are on the screen, and then running and seeing it happen on the spreadsheet. So I really like the way she's color-coded it for me to understand what different things you can edit. Questions maybe about that, if they want to pop in. I'm kind of moderating with Becky as well if you have anything.
Great. I can't take credit for the color coding. I think that's a function of the script editor. So it's as much as I would like to think that was my genius moment, that was a good copy and paste. So I'm going to go ahead and copy all of this while we're here. And to use this, what we're going to do is we're going to open up our script editor like we walked through. We're going to have the spreadsheet next to it. And then we're going to, under the Run menu, Run Example. We're to for a number, and then I want us to notice the following as it happens. First is the input box. Insert the number and the calculation, and then the message box. So we'll kind of get to see this in action a number of times. What we'll do is we'll come back to kind of writing out your script and doing some coding after we've gone through this in the live example. So Wendy, if you're ready, I'm going to go ahead and minimize presentation and actually do a Docs home page. And I'm from scratch on this first one. And really just that way you don't think anything's been pre-built or pre-done. So I just opened a new spreadsheet. I'm going to say, give the title. Okay. And then remember, under Tools, we have Script Editor. Okay, and so it opens up in a new window for me. Let me see if I can pull this one. Here we go. I'm going to shorten up and we'll see if we can get the script editor to open a window. Let me see here what my Okay, what we'll do is we'll just jump back and forth. What I do is, if everyone with me for just a moment.
Put the code on the resource website if anyone wants to follow along and copy and paste and do what Rachel's doing. So I re-put the link on there, and it's kind of pasted right at the top if anyone wants to jump in that.
I'm going to go with the tabs side by side instead of the windows side by side.
If you want to, you can take the, you can just pull it out and put it in a new window, and you can make the individual window smaller.
So just, oh, yeah. That's what I was missing. I'm on a different computer this afternoon. And then let's make this one behind it. Thanks, Betty.
Perfect.
I must have a setting on my other computer where it does it automatically. Okay, so here we go. Now I'm going to just highlight what's already there so I can paste the example. And I'm going to save. We'll call this script 3, project name. See the Run menu. function name example is there. Let's, just so you see how this is working, let's make this example 2. And you change the function and save. We're changing the option for what can be run. So example, again, here active spreadsheet. So the first thing it's done is it's gotten our active spreadsheet and its sheet, and it says the browser is going to the browsers each have an inbox that they use. So Chrome looks a little different from Safari, which looks a little different from Firefox, which looks a little different from Internet Explorer. In this case, Wendy, what number should we put in there?
Number 7.
7. Number 7.
Yep.
I click OK, and look here. So hopefully you noticed before the message box appeared, find it in the spreadsheet, there's a number entered, and in that hidden cell B1 underneath the message box, there's a value 7. And we get a message box saying the value you entered plus 1 is 8.
It's absolutely magical.
It's truly magic. So let's run it again. And let's say 999. And you'll see number entered was changed in our cell, and the value you entered plus 1 is 1,000. I started doing the other day, or a couple of weeks ago, I guess. I thought, well, this actually could be a little flashcard program. So what happens if I copy this and I say, let's do a new file. Let's say multiply. Now that we have a second file inside this project, and I'm going to paste the example again, and I'm going to name my function multiplication. Let's make a few changes. So I still want it to work with the active spreadsheet. I still would be an input box where a student would enter a number. I want number to be entered into cell B1 with a label in A1 that says number entered. What I want to do is on this calculation part, I want to say, and actually I'm going to make my multiplication by 3. And let's do a multiplication sign here, an asterisk, by 3. I've changed my calculation, and now what I also need to do is change my string in the line below, right? Because so far it reads the value you entered plus 1 is. So say the value you entered times 3 is, and again calling that value to show. Now when I save, we'll list a couple of things, and hopefully we did this right. So when we run, I'm on the multiply file. So if I do multiplication by 3, enter Wendy what number?
This time, how about 25?
25. Say OK, and you'll see my number entered is updated. The value entered times 3 is 75.
Magic.
Or magic. So here's the thing. Obviously, if I'm a student in a classroom, I mean, this is all cool, and I think this is actually a really nice beginner script to start walking through line by line. And we could do, tables. So my multiplication tables, my hardest one was always 9. And it's the magic rule, and I should have learned it when I was young, but I didn't. So So my names always gave me grief when I was in, second and third grade. So I would multiplication by 9. Again, changed my calculation, and I've changed my string to both reflect the correct information. My number entered is updated, and the value returned is correct. How cool would this be to build a little flashcard program for students in the elementary school to be able to quiz themselves? They think ahead of time, what's 7 times 9? They enter number 7 in the input box, and then they get to double check their response with the message box. With that, we need to jump back to our slideshow, though. First, I want to a little bit about this idea of what I find helpful. I'm starting to write a small snippet of code, or I do a lot of HTML and CSS especially. I like to build a structure or kind of narrate what I want to do ahead of time. So in this one, it's kind of reverse engineering. We could have started with this before we actually looked at the example, but a lot of times it helps after we've seen it. So we're doing it now. So thinking ahead of time what we wanted to happen for this flashcard program or script, we could say, okay, I want an input box to appear where a student can enter a number. I want that number to show up somewhere. I want some type of calculation done to it. And I want a message box to appear with the result so that student can, on his or own, double check their multiplication, addition, subtraction. And that's what we kind of used as that really simple first script, our simple flashcard script that we just walked through. The reason I hesitate is I'm going to kind of softball this to Wendy. If you're a teacher, it'd be if, this is nice. It's like a calculator, but maybe on steroids a little bit. But how to make this better? I don't want my students to have to go into the spreadsheet. I don't want them to have to open the script editor. I don't want them to have to get to the actual function they want to run and then run it. Are there some things built into Google Apps scripts, things we don't have time to talk about today, but that we might talk Dana and Becky into finding some willing teachers to lead in future segments of this?
There actually is, Rachel. That's one of the things that kind of scares teachers a lot with this, is they think that they're constantly going to have to be going back in to start something, and you don't have to, because Google Apps Script actually has a couple of things. You have the handlers that you can put in right at the start of code, such as when something opens, when somebody edits it, or when somebody installs the script, and we call those event handlers. But there's also time-driven triggers. And I know Rachel can show us really quick.
Oh, I'm already skipping through the example.
If you can jump to the trigger there, you can set when you want it to happen. So if I, for instance, want this to go maybe every hour, maybe if it was a mail merge and you wanted to send out a confirmation email that you maybe got from a form when you're going around and doing teacher observations, if you want that script to continuously call it at a certain time, triggers are your friend. And now you don't have to ever go in and have it start manually. Triggers will help you do it when you want. So in this case, Rachel's showing us to run from what event and when do you want it to run. And so she pops it there, and now her kids don't have to go in there all the time, and the teachers have to go in all the time. It's just one thing that you add into the code, and more magic, Rachel.
More magic. So there are also tools for adding, there are scripts for adding menu buttons. So those in the audience who have used Flubaroo, that when you have a Flubaroo spreadsheet, the Flubaroo script installed, you actually have an additional menu bar item that says Flubaroo, and it includes different functions that are hiding inside the script editor. And along those same lines, you can essentially build, and it's getting better every day. I think there was a post just a couple of weeks ago. You can actually build user interfaces inside of Google Apps scripts now. I have not done one yet. Again, maybe we need to come back again for a session 4 or a session 5, since we have limited amounts of time. But you can really start to build almost like a shell on top of your script for it to look more like a program rather than like a spreadsheet with a script attached. And so now, let's see. I was going to, if we could refresh. There. Going to walk back through that again. When Wendy was talking, we set the trigger for this multiplication by 9. Just this function, we set that to run when we open the spreadsheet. When I go back to my docs list, as a teacher, and I had shared this spreadsheet with my students, opened up the spreadsheet, they would have an input box appear and a return value. Again, this is very limited. In the next phase, we would want to talk about being able to run it multiple times, being able to add a menu bar item and a user interface, maybe more triggers. But you get the idea. This is where some of those really cool programs, this is the seed of those possibilities. I'm going to jump back to the slideshow. Wendy has a ton of great resources here at the end.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Rachel. I hope everybody kind of enjoyed walking through that small example. But my point in the slide right now is to help you guys go from here. And this is where I'm kind of at in my own scripting journey. But these are all wonderful resources, and I've kind of taken it upon myself to keep teaching myself. Elegant JavaScript is what Rachel referred to earlier with the octopus metaphor, and it's a really great site to start to understand the overall JavaScript language. Code Academy is awesome. I think I'll put a screenshot in there, but it's just, you can badges, and it's more lesson style, so it walks you from the very first enter in your name and what that looks like in code, and takes you all the way through much more complex tasks. So that's what I'm in the midst of right now, and it's kind of fun because you earn your badges as you go through it. Google Apps Scripts tutorials are huge. The one that you just went through today, there's one just like it in the App Script tutorial actual website, and it can walk you through step by step exactly what Rachel and I just did with you today. So you can kind of take your time and look and see what each of those different functions mean and do. Google Apps Script templates, that's where I would start as an educator, in the template gallery. I'll do in a second, is just rife with ones that developers and teachers have already made, like Flubaroo, which is a self-grading quiz application. It used to be that educators had to do kind of do coding all themselves, and if you're not that experienced with it, it could have been a big task, but teachers did it. In this case, Flubaroo makes things a lot easier, and there's a couple of other really cool ones that are heavily used in the template gallery. And the mail merge script is there. That's a great one to put it inside of your spreadsheet, actually watch it email you. And we did, if you watch our previous webcast, you can see that as well. We've got the Google Apps forums and Flu, and I can show you guys a little bit more. If Rachel, do you want to go ahead and click ahead?
Sure.
See what we got. Well, this is Google+, and I'm super excited because the last couple of weeks with the event of Hangouts, we've been seeing a lot of Google folks get on Google+ and offering office hours and Hangouts. And so this is who's from the developer team, and he held a developer's office hours. So we got to pop on and all the guys were much more experienced in developing than me, but it was nice to be in there, ask a couple of questions about from the teaching of it, and you know, other times they're just chewing over maybe a problem or something that with the code and what can they do with it. So that was really fun. So I really encourage you, if you're not on Google+, to maybe start following some Google products on the Google+ pages, following some Googlers. There's some circles that have all of these Googlers in it. It's a really nice way to kind of keep in touch with the product and kind of be part of this community, which, as Rachel and I have been telling you, it really is a community of people and trying out new things with Google Apps and telling them what to do with scripts. I go to the next one, Rachel. I can show them a little bit more. And this is, I embedded it in here, but this is a great intro to Google Apps Script that goes a little bit more in depth if you're interested. So it's in this presentation as well as our resource site. And I'm going to go to the next one, the forums. And I love the forums. I don't know if anyone else here is a big forum like me, but talking about pseudocode. And as you're starting to think about what you want the application to do, whether it's docs or sites or talk to mail or calendar that you might, events that you might have, write down and put a little planning a script screenshot in there, which is what you want it to do. That helps you when you go into the forums, because the forums are actually full of other developers. It really gets checked often, and I've put in a couple of questions like I'll get from teachers that say, I have this form and I have this thing on with my calendar and I want them to talk to each other. Can I do it? And the answer usually is yes, but find the right way sometimes takes some time. So the forum is really helpful because I'll get a response back in like a day or two in what script to use. Most of the time some people already made it and they just share the resources. So the script forum is there, and I even encourage you as a total newbie when I first got in there, nobody, you know, they'll definitely help scaffold your way into learning more about scripts. So hit up the forums. And our next slide, Rachel, shows us, here are more of the templates. If you go to that Google Apps Script tutorial site, you'll see there's mail merge, getting mail with the day's agenda, run a course registration system, and of course games. And you can think of games kind of like with Rachel with flashcards, thinking about ways you can take data or practicing things that your students might need to do and putting it in a fun interface like that. So my first kind of advice is to just jump to some of these templates, run your spreadsheet, watch the magic unfold like we did today over and over again, and play and edit with the script and see how it changes, and then slowly start to see yourself understand the language a little bit better. And those are all of our resources that we've put. Again, all these links are on that resource website, and I hope you guys have time to jump in and play with it and learn more.
Agreed. We could do these weekly for a couple of hours. I think Wendy and I have enjoyed the time we've spent already. It's just there's not enough of it. So I hope made it a little less intimidating. You've walked through seeing us start at the very beginning, session 1, where we started just running a script that was already built for us. And in this, I don't mean copying and pasting. I mean just running the script from the spreadsheet. In the second session, we took that same script, that simple mail merge, and we started editing some of the things that we could. We modified the script a bit. And in this third version, we've actually walked through kind of the pseudocode and the understanding of what all of this text is saying. We've actually opened up the script editor to get used to the environment. And then we've modified and changed up some of those functions and calculations.
And you can see the bottom of that page. I know we've been working mainly in spreadsheets, but a good example from the Google Teach Academy, I will have that published, but it's right there, and it's a presentation on how to use the uploader tool in sites for assignment upload, and it's one of the more popular ones that we've used with some of my teachers I work with. But it's a nice to open a script editor and sites and start to see what you can do with sites. So if spreadsheet excited you, then think of all the things you can also do with Google Sites.
I'm thinking I may play around with this online flashcard idea. Not that there aren't millions of them, but Wendy, we may be back.
Seeing the rest of us yet.
We have one question that I don't think was answered from about halfway through the presentation. This was just about how to find a script to copy and paste.
So Wendy has, I think it's Wendy who must have posted script here.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It is also linked bottom. Here's the example script. And I'll then post the direct URL in the chat window.
Perfect.
In the Q&A side?
You can put it in the Q&A. Mm-hmm. Okay. Actually, if the attendees can see that, so you can put it in the chat window. Okay. We're not used to being on WebEx from the other side, so.
Oh. The right spot.
I'm running the Google Apps script site now, so that's the tutorial. If you want to go back through and kind of walk yourself through it, this is really helpful because it'll break down each line by line just like Rachel did, but it's nice to do it, again, at your own pace for sure.
Okay, the link to that start point is now in the chat window.
Perfect. Great. If you have any questions for Wendy and Rachel, please put them in the chat window or the Q&A window. We'll be sure to answer them in the next 10 minutes.
I have a question for folks who are still on the line. Are they already doing some pretty sophisticated scripts? And we didn't, on the past two sessions, we said if you're an experienced JavaScript or Google Apps script person, this might not be the session for you. So in some ways, there are a couple of you out there, and in some ways, I hope it wasn't a wasted 45 minutes for you. What are some neat scripts that people are doing? Even if you didn't write it yourself, are there favorites?
People interested in studying, and Google has written a script the science department uses to schedule the lab. That's cool. I think that talking to Calendar, and especially with who are using Google Calendar as kind of your go-to resource or scheduler, it's huge to be able to make it do what you want, I'm sure.
Right.
It adds appointments to a shared calendar. Cool.
Well, did you
did you write that?
You kind of cobble together pieces of existing scripts. I'm interested in the idea of the course registration.
He did most of it himself. Pretty cool. Go hang out with Michael sometime.
I was trying to say, I think Dana, as we're thinking about people to carry on this series, I have a feeling Michael may be one of those people we need to talk to. Oh, course registration. There are scripts, and in fact, so Sean was asking about, course registration. There is an event registration script. Let me get out of my annotation tools here. And I believe that Wendy has it, let me think of where I saw it, on one of our slides. There to the examples, the app script templates, and one of those is running a course registration system. And from what I understand, I've played just a little bit with it. It needs maybe a little bit of tweaking depending on how you have set up your course structure. It's a really good starting point. a simple course registration or an event management type of where you're connecting the form and the spreadsheet. And I know a couple people are already working on like building in some prerequisites and co-requisites and having lookup references to make those decisions on if a student is eligible for a course, and not just simply is the course full.
Like that was met with warm reception by the audience. Do you want to show them the template gallery and the education section of it and some of the other goodies they can get from there?
So let me go back here. Let me actually go back to my spreadsheet, I guess would be maybe the best place. So just like you're building a new site block, there's a script gallery. Oops, maybe.
Somebody emailed and mentioned that this was happening earlier today, but the script gallery wasn't wet.
Oh, well, on a normal day, there's just like a sites gallery.
Section, and that's where you can find Flu-Brew or some already made ones that are, ready to go and ready to install.
Yeah, sorry that's not up right now. I'll look into it. What's going on?
Is it from a
might be something on the server
from
side,
URL?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think, Wendy, do you know a back way in? I normally access it through the spreadsheet.
Yeah, when you pulled up one of the examples, it said go to the template gallery, but I'm pretty sure that will, when you went to the course reg, it was at the top of the course reg, but it's probably going to take you to the same spot.
Yeah, let's see here.
There's a question that snuck in here about wanting to use AppScript to compile evaluation responses. Do you have a suggestion for one to do that?
Well, let's see about that.
It comes in through a form. Maybe it's evaluations that are coming in via form and populating a spreadsheet. Mm-hmm. Want to maybe make the spreadsheet do something with it. Is that what the question is kind of out there?
Yeah, it seems that.
Well, there's tons of things you can do with data, as Rachel kind of showed you. Once you have numbers and values in the cells, you can tell it what to do. But in terms of a gallery, since we can't get it up, Michael will do the chart API. Or chart services. Yeah, to tell it to do things. So charts in Google Spreadsheets are ways that you can use your data, like putting it into a motion chart or different visual representations. And so you could use scripts to call that into without using to do it. It could certainly automate it and take our evaluation responses and put that in.
And we'll see if there's anything search or evaluation. Oh, this iPad app evaluation for education, class evaluation survey, project evaluation, and instructor evaluation. That would be a nice one to take a look at. And then even some individual speech evaluations or individual assignment evaluations. So I depend. This is probably one of those where it would be that pseudocode piece. You would want to write out what you would like to do with the data gathered by the form, and start building the script.
And go form. Ask a form. I'm telling you, they're doing, and they can take your pseudocode and kind of push you in the right direction.
Yep. And as Mike says, you can also do some of your own queries. Google Spreadsheets does understand SQL, in addition to chart services and some of the built-in pieces. And really, I still find one of the most powerful things is just using the summary, the view summary of responses. Right, spreadsheet form. Yeah, I think, did we catch all of the questions?
Those are questions we have, and I can align for, the last 2 minutes in case any last-minute questions come in. But, I just want to thank you both again for sharing your knowledge with us and for, being, some awesome certified trainers. So thanks again for doing this webinar.
Thanks for moderating, and thanks, Rachel, for taking the lead, and thanks everybody else for giving us suggestions and questions, and we hope we can continue our little community of scribblers.
Great.
All right, and were you thinking of switching over into Google Plus and starting a Hangout?
Yeah, certainly. If anybody was interested in maybe chatting more, if anybody maybe, I don't know how many of us have Google Plus out there, but that's a nice way to extend. Sound like there was some cool questions going about course registration, and Michael and good ideas about his calendar system. So something we could definitely meet and chat more about if anyone's interested.
A few minutes. I think if we can get Michael there, I think maybe he can answer our questions.
And if aren't sure what Google Plus is, you can also go and for it and play around and find really cool hangouts that are happening.
Thank you guys. Take care. Bye.
All right. Thanks, everyone.